Welcome to the Odd Times, where you'll find interesting topics and random opinions. I'm Clara.
I'm Nick.
And I'm Tad.
Today we'll be talking about cryptids, which are animals whose existence or survival is disputed or unsubstantiated, like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster, those type of things. Some cryptids have been found and proven to be real. The platypus was a cryptid at one time.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And more recently, the giant squid is a really famous one that they've gotten footage of off the coast of Japan.
True.
In the last couple of years.
Ah.
And that
horrifying footage.
Yeah.
Is it? I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I didn't realize they didn't have footage of the giant squid before that. I thought they knew it existed.
They found bodies, I think, and tentacles, parts.
I think they only recently, a few years ago now, but somewhat recently got footage of a giant squid. Cool. Alive. Not just like a body. So it was proven, yeah. So it's really possible, a lot of cryptids could be out there. There are others too. I know of another armored fish whose name I do not remember. And then there's maybe. And then there's a deer thing with a zebra looking butt that also was a cryptid that's recently been proven to be real.
Cool.
So we have two cryptids in particular to discuss today. And we'll start with Nick and the Fresno Nightcrawler.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. This is actually a YouTube video of it, complete with audio. This is from this particular channel, Fresno, California Alien HD. Mm-hmm. But just very strange. Pants floating across a front yard.
Maybe there's more than one, and there's a sisterhood of them.
Eerie pants, the traveling pants, if you will. Look at it go. Listen to the creepy music.
Right, it's such a grainy video. Isn't this I think this is a cell phone or a recording of a surveillance camera, then re-videoed on a phone or something weird.
Something, yeah.
Traveling pants. I love this soundtrack. I'm gonna turn it down though because it's really intense.
Yeah, maybe
shit.
Oh, just mute it.
Just mute it. My ears. That's gonna be so annoying to listen to.
It still looks like somebody's clothesline got up and walked away.
I can't take it anymore.
It's limping, and I still don't understand why it's limping if it's made out of clothes.
It's just bell-bottom pants that had enough. It's leaving.
So yeah, it was submitted to a news organization in Southern California and was recorded off of an old lo-fi camera onto a VHS camera and then recorded via a handheld camera onto from a grainy video of it playing on a television, presumably with tracking issues and all that.
So it's a recording of a recording.
It's a recording of a recording of a recording, actually, because then it was played at a conference and then re-recorded at that time and then uploaded to YouTube, which probably involves some more compression.
Wow.
So, it's just... There's no... that probably at the beginning of all this could have been just a person. And due to all the compression, they've just been compressed into this ghostly form. Who knows? I mean,
I like the comment in the notes that is currently the original footage was destroyed by the homeowner who subsequently moved and unable to locate. No further information available.
Yeah,
just to make it just extra creepy.
Eerie pants.
There's another video in a state park near there, isn't there? Of two of them.
Actually, I may be able to find that.
And I've heard people say, see, the second video confirms that these have to be a real thing or it's not a hoax. And then people say, no, the second video is also just a copy hoax. And there being only two videos ever does not prove...
That's not...
that either of them are real.
Oh, God, yeah.
Which... I mean, I have seen these before, and I've showed people before, the creepy walking pants, and then people are like, what are you talking about? So then I have to find the video, and there are two videos. One's the surveillance one, and then one's this park one, And those are the only two I've ever seen of them. Anytime I've looked for them, I've never found anything else. No other accounts, which makes me personally a little suspicious. But
this video is a pain to find. They don't want people to know the truth.
That's right. They're hiding it.
Oh, man.
Oh, wait, I think I found it.
A lot of what you find is people, like, creatively disproving this cryptid.
Oh, trying to make their own pants video.
It seems like it would be a fun hobby.
I'm going to...
I want to say there are a bunch of shows that do, like, you know, I think Fact or Faked is one where they're like, oh, evidence of paranormal or cryptid stuff. Can we recreate it?
Oh, yeah. I put the link in the chat where the last link was.
Oh, okay.
To the second video. You know, this one at first looks like one of those ghosts you make out of Kleenex.
There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Except that they're walking around.
Right. So let's check this out. Strange.
The second video.
Little audio in.
Maybe.
Doesn't have any audio, which is good. Yeah, so these... I don't know.
It could be people on stilts.
It could be people on stilts.
But then where's the rest of their body? Because the legs go all the way up.
Well, you can't. depends on how big they are, because you can't quite tell that. It's too loosey-goosey at the top. Like, they could be really tall stilts, and their body is only like the top 10th of that shape.
That could be a pretty big tree, but there's nothing to really scale the path, unless that's actually a car path. Which it could be. It could be. That kind of looks like the type of concrete like path you'd see in that area.
It says that this is the driveway.
There are a lot of theories as to how you can, you know, reproduce this. You've had people try various means with fishing line, and the stilts was another common theme. Stilts with just, you know, the top photoshopped out, which is actually pretty doable these days with video editing software.
So I mean, it's have like a green shirt on or something.
Yeah.
Or in this video, even black, frankly, would.
It would definitely read as invisible, I guess. But like beyond that, I mean, the video editing software exists to do that. We're at a level where you can do Photoshop type things with video, and it's just way too easy to fake something like this.
Their legs still don't move quite right for people on stilts, though.
Yeah.
Puppets, maybe, even?
Maybe, could be puppets.
Yeah, that was a common theory.
It definitely, to me, looks like cloth. Not like a creature with weird legs, but like cloth.
Oh, yeah. It definitely looks like cloth over something.
Cloth over a frame, even, I would say.
Yeah,
like
which
a central frame skeleton.
Makes me think there's no way it's like a real thing. Because
no, it would have to be actually aliens or something, because they'd have to be able to make cloth. Or it's a weird membrane that looks like cloth.
Yeah, that's one thing I've heard. It could be some kind of unknown fungus that's wandering around.
That moves around?
Yeah, which would be
weird.
Very strange, because, you know, you got to wonder what benefit to the fungus is it to move around like that?
Walk around on two
you would
think
legs. It's a good way to get attacked by predators, especially in the middle of the night wandering through.
Especially being white.
Nobody would attack him. He's a real fun guy.
You're out of the podcast.
Well, okay, fair enough. I deserve that. I think I'm technically old enough to tell dad jokes now, so.
Oh, well, okay then. You're excused.
Yeah.
No, actually, I'm old enough to not quite know what dad jokes are. They're just like regular jokes.
Right? Yeah. Thank you. I get accused of this all the time. Dad jokes here. Dad jokes there. They're just jokes.
Yeah. I don't see why they're dad jokes. No. And also they're funny. Darn it.
Yeah. I think if you tell a joke and you're older than somebody else, it's automatically a dad joke.
No,
yeah, probably.
No. Dad jokes are specifically like cheesy, corny, groan-worthy joke. Like you say, like, I'm hungry, and they go, oh, hi, hungry, I'm dad.
Oh.
Then so it's like,
I think when I was a kid, we just called those bad jokes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that might be the idea. Yeah.
I think it might
be. Jokes, dad jokes, same.
It's a sad day in humor.
Sad jokes.
Anyway, the night crawlers are really weird. I kind of lean on the side of them being fake, just because there are so many ways you can come up with to make this very same image. And
that, and also Fresno is not that near unexplored areas.
It's really not.
It's a big
I've heard
city.
arguments for Sasquatch. There's places we've literally never been in the Pacific Northwest. There's huge, from a human perspective, huge wastelands that you just can't get to. But I've been to Fresno multiple times, and there's not really anywhere near there that cryptids could have hidden from all of human civilization until this point.
In the orchards. Or
the orchards are creepy.
Well, yeah.
Well, and when I first saw this video, which is a while back now, at first I was like, whoa, that's crazy. What is that? But then, like, over time, having looked into it a little bit more, I can't find anything but those 2 videos. No stories of this being a thing people have seen.
That's a good point.
Usually, like, with Bigfoot and stuff, you have a bunch of stories and photos and videos, and a lot of them are grainy and you can't tell what it is, but they're there. And this seems like you had that one surveillance video and then the second one near the park.
Yeah.
And
that's it. So yeah, I seriously doubt it's a cryptid for just those reasons. Like, if it's not fake, the thing that would make most sense would be aliens or something with the technology to make cloth that has not been here this whole time. It visited once for like a week, and 2 people happen to get it on film.
Right.
I mean, if it's going to visit, Yosemite is one of the places.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not so sure about Fresno, though.
Yeah, that was a weird choice.
Yeah.
Maybe that's where they had to land to be more ambiguous, like to blend in with the air traffic.
No one would notice the sounds or lights of...
Yeah.
Maybe they are hero aliens who are on the run from the law. They're being persecuted by their own people, and that's why they had to land in Fresno. Because everybody knows that if you're going to visit Earth, Fresno is probably not top of the list.
No one would follow them there.
Apologies to all people from Fresno. It is a very nice city.
Sometimes.
It's all right. Like
it's nicer than it used to be.
Yeah, it's coming up. It's coming up
by a lot.
Yeah,
that's true.
I mean, my opinions on Fresno were formed in the early '80s, so they're a lot more negative than the modern Fresno really deserves.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, slide a little bit and come back. It's a cool town. Has a lot of unique things about it, but it's always
really horrible railroad tracks, though.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like the worst railroad crossings I have ever been across in my life, and every one of them, at least that's the last time I drove through.
Maybe that's,
I don't know why.
Maybe the night crawlers are railway ghosts of some type.
They could be.
That's why they only appear to be half people, because
they got run over by a train.
Bisection, yeah. Very.
I want to know where their top halves haunting.
Oh, that's so okay. So now we need to scour the internet for videos of just the top half of a ghost.
Right? I mean, that seems like a logical next step in investigating this cryptid. Is do you have floating torsos and arms?
Yes, or just heads, and then just heads. Like they're just
heads somewhere else.
They're just putting themselves back together like Dr. Manhattan. It's fine.
I mean, that's not uncommon. I think for ghosts to display the scars that they received in death or in life.
like nearly headless neck.
Yeah, like that was fiction, but yeah.
we don't actually have any
reality.
We don't actually have any proven non-fictional accounts of ghosts.
What?
Right.
So,
well, I mean, it was taken from non-fictional accounts of ghosts, like
right.
Interviewed. I don't know what those.
So heard, and I have not looked it up, that the night crawlers resemble some sort of Native American thing in that area. Is that did you look that up? Is that true, or is that just something people say to go, oh, look, it has to be real?
Well, I think it's more unverified. So I think it's just something that's been sort of tacked onto it to give it a little bit of believability. So there was a picture of some trees that had been sent from someone in Florida, but had originated in New Jersey or something like that. And
so it's not even from that area or anything.
Right. I'm having done my research through YouTube videos. I'm sure it was very thorough.
Well, of course.
Okay, so I went to the Wikipedia. Wikipedia has an article on this cryptid.
Yeah.
So I went to that, and it says the beings have reportedly been recognized by at least one local Native American tribe.
Ooh, okay.
And certain Native American wood carvings have been noted as bearing a significant resemblance to the Fresno night crawlers. So that is...
I'm interested.
The first link is to the Odyssey Online, which is the original place that it was posted, I believe. And the second is an article in The Sun.
What tribe?
Yeah. Oh, it's just what Native American.
Broad Native American?
Yeah. I'm inclined to think since just the lack of instances of them being seen and the fact that the only two videos are so close together time-wise.
This says they were 3 years apart.
Well,
I don't know if that's true.
I don't know either. I don't know. I'm very skeptical.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am still skeptical.
Recorded in 1952. What? Why don't we have a record of those reports?
Yeah. That would change it, certainly, to have more people be like, no, we've always seen these, or...
The original Fresno surveillance footage was featured on the second episode of the first season of the paranormal investigation TV series Fact or Faked, Paranormal Files. Does not say whether they found it faked or not.
Interesting. I mean, I don't know. I'm inclined to think it's definitely not a cryptid in the sense of it doesn't look like a creature that's just out there in the wild somewhere.
Agreed.
I think personally, I think it's probably just a hoax. I think someone just made them. And if that's not true, which is a big if, then I think it's got to be either a spirit or alien type of thing, because it doesn't look like any animal I've ever seen or ever heard of. And
right.
It's just garbage blowing in the wind.
It's just a very artistic garbage bag.
You saw American Beauty. They can be artistic.
Apparently.
Yeah, very inspiring.
Interesting.
Yeah. Those are some weird videos.
Yeah.
Oh, you unplugged me.
I did. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
Clara, unplugged.
Live.
Plugged back in. Yeah, so that was my strange cryptid.
They're definitely strange.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
I'm not... it'll be interesting to see if more videos come out of this strange, weird pants thing. I look forward to seeing them in new environments from new perspectives.
Yes.
And maybe we'll get some credibility.
And maybe eventually we will finally be contacted directly by the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Could be. I mean, they were booking. They had somewhere to be. So they might be too busy for us. I don't know.
Could be.
It's true.
But that's it for pants. That's it for the Fresno night crawlers. Let us know what you think. We're always looking for more information on these weird topics, cryptids, Fresno night crawling pants, and other strange things alike. So let us know.
I'm surprised they're not called the Night Walkers, but
the Night Walkers.
I think that sounds crazier and less wormy.
Wasn't that a Game of Thrones thing?
Yeah, I'd have to agree with the less wormy. No, those were White Walkers, not Night Walkers. No, these are white, so technically,
it's true. But
they are White Walkers.
Yeah, they are. Interesting.
It's true. So. Wraps up the walking pants.
I suppose it does.
Night crawlers.
Yeah.
So next we'll have the cryptid I looked into, which is the rock ape of Vietnam. And right after this short break. So don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll be right back. Finger guns.
Thanks. Finger gun. All right, and welcome back to the Odd Times. This is issue 3, part 2 of our rock ape and Fresno night crawler especial.
Guess which part this is?
Yeah, this is part 2, as mentioned.
No, I mean, guess what we're talking about next?
Oh, yeah. Rock ape.
I'll have you know that every time you say rock ape, I am now hearing like you're about to say rock, paper, scissors.
It's only because we rock, paper, scissored for who would be doing the intro to this part.
Exactly.
Well, it's appropriate, I guess.
Having thrown scissors 3 times in a row, my nerves are shot. So
you're just on the edge of your seat.
I'm mostly going to be
tension
quiet.
You can cut with a pair of scissors.
Dude, oh my goodness, that was intense.
So yeah, I have the rock ape of Vietnam to talk about.
It is.
I will probably butcher the real name. So it's Batutut.
No. What?
Batutut.
Sorry about that.
You lightly pronounced the last T, I think.
No.
So Batutut.
Batutut.
Which is a cryptid from Vietnam. So there's a creature that's said to live in the jungles near the borders of Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, as well as northern Borneo, which is an island near there. The people that live in those areas call them Batutut, Ujit, or, I'm going to butcher this, Ngoirung? Ngoirung, I think.
The G is silent.
I
don't know.
It is. Who knows?
Yeah.
The
I is
it depends on the area where they call them that, but they're something
anyway,
like that.
Yeah.
So they call them the different things depending on the area, but all of them roughly translate to jungle people. They're, I think, Bigfoot-ish kind of creature. Reports vary from really large, like 6 feet tall, to pretty small, like child size kind of, but not like they are 6 feet tall unless they're children, but like there seem to be different sizes in different areas and things like that. They're reported to be very stout, muscular, but always walk bipedally, unlike other, great apes that would be a little of both. Always reported as bipedal. They have protruding stomachs. They're covered in hair, which is everywhere but their hands, feet, faces, and knees. The hair's gray, brown, black, those kind of colors. They inhabit isolated jungle areas. They are reported to be very bold and aggressive, especially in Borneo, where people report having been attacked by them and seeing them attack people.
Wow.
They travel in groups, which are referred to as troops, and they're most active around dusk or during the night. People who live in those areas don't see them as a myth or a cryptid at all. They just see them as a real thing. They're just a fact of life in the jungle. Let's see. Anthropologist Professor Dang Neheim Van, terrible pronouncing names, recounts stories about them coming into places where people have fires burning and sitting beside men, and they either don't speak or they do, but in an unintelligible language. There's also stories about couples of them quickly climbing trees, shaking them for insects, and sleeping in different mountainous regions. Here, click the thingy. Click the thing, change the slide. That's the map of Vietnam, Thailand, Laos. It's not on this map, but to the southeast of... Where is it on the screen? There you go. To the southeast, so in this area is... Around here is where northern Borneo is.
No. Down this way.
Yeah, so Borneo is around here. There's a specific nature preserve that's a little to the southwest of Hanoi that looks like this. That they're often reported as being spotted in. It's called the Vu Quang Nature Reserve, I believe. Excuse my pronunciations if you know how to pronounce these things, because I am terrible at them.
Because we don't know.
They're often reported in that area, where that nature reserve is, because there's not as many people there.
Look at how rugged it is.
It's very rugged. Jungle. Like, straight up jungle.
Like, cliffy jungle.
It's a lot of it. I don't think all of it is quite that cliffy. No. But, so yeah, it's essentially similar to Bigfoot. And here in the States or in Canada, but it's Vietnam.
So, why is it classified as a cryptid rather than an unknown species?
As far as I know, they've never found any proof of it being a real creature. It's not an ape it's not like a gorilla or anything like that. They're definitely reported as more humanoid.
Right.
And yeah.
I don't know. It just kind of seems like it's only being called a cryptid because white people haven't seen it.
Here's the interesting thing about why it's called a rock ape. White people have seen it. During the Vietnam War, a surprising amount of soldiers, they're called rock apes because the soldiers would tell stories of seeing these creatures, and the creatures would throw rocks at them. So they started calling them rock apes.
Huh.
Interesting.
And they'd report like strange ape-like creatures that were neither human nor ape. So they're kind of like they're more of a Bigfoot-ish thing than just an unclassified like primate.
Right.
And yeah, a lot of soldiers, some of the stories are crazy. I wrote a few of them down because apparently a lot of them just had weird encounters with them. Like they'd get rocks thrown at them from the jungle and they'd think it might have been have been the enemy, but then it wasn't. And they'd see the strange creatures.
Well, if they really exist, they had to have been pretty pissed off that there was a war being fought in their jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you figure you'd have like whole groups of people just sneaking through the jungle or moving through the jungle or camping in their territory that wouldn't have been there before.
Not to mention Napalm and Agent Orange.
Yeah. And some of the accounts are crazy. Like, let me see. A soldier named Craig Jorgensen wrote a book and gave about the war and gave an account of a group of soldiers resting in the jungle, and then some trees on a nearby hillside kind of began shaking, and they assumed it was the enemy and got ready to fight. But then he reports a strange oblong face emerged from the jungle. It was and the creature was covered in hair, and it stepped forward and kind of revealed itself. So at that point they realized it wasn't just someone in like a ghillie suit. And it stood on 2 feet, just like a human, and it stared at them before kind of moving back into the jungle. And I guess he says that a lot of the men in his regiment, I don't know, a lot of the soldiers with him thought, oh, it's an orangutan. But then others pointed out there's no orangutans anywhere near Vietnam. So it couldn't have been that.
So does that mean that was one of the smaller ones? Because orangutans aren't actually all that big. I don't think. Not like great ape size.
I think they're smaller than gorillas, but they're pretty big as far as it goes.
Oh, okay. I thought they're...
I'm seriously lacking in the orangutan knowledge department.
Well, and most of my orangutan knowledge is a stuffed toy that I had, so...
That wouldn't be very good.
Yeah, that probably isn't life-size.
No.
There's another story told by Robert Baird that says his unit began to hear strange sounds at night outside their camp, and a corporal went to check it out. And while he was gone, the soldiers at the camp heard gunshots, and he ran back into camp, panicked, and told them that he'd fired off some rounds in the dark. And
it's a big no-no.
Yeah, and they were all like, what? Because, silence was the rule of the jungle. Like, you don't give away your position. And he told them that he'd walked by in the dark and then walked back after finding nothing and saw a bush that hadn't been there when he went by the first time. So he kind of leaned down to check it out, and it snorted at him, and he realized it was a hairy creature crouched down on the ground. And I guess he kind of panicked and fired and then ran back. And And yeah, they were not happy about him shooting his gun off.
No.
But I think it's really interesting that it's a cryptid that has people who by all accounts wouldn't know about it, having seen it in such mass quantities.
Right.
And I found a very interesting telling of they called it a battle between a group of Marines and like a troop of the rock apes.
Oh wow.
Like it's pretty crazy. They actually, let's see.
Hey.
So wouldn't they have left physical evidence behind in a battle?
Yes. Apparently there was they found, so okay, let me see what the story is. So there was an account from a group of Marines in the Quangnam province, and they radioed in that they'd seen movement in the jungle around them, and they assumed it was the Viet Cong. They were told not to fire because, you don't want to give away your position more than you have to. And then they radioed back a little while later to say that it wasn't the enemy, but a large group of hairy bipedal humanoids that were all around them in their encampment. They were told again not to fire, but throw rocks at them to scare them away. And so they did that, but then the creatures began throwing rocks back at them. And the soldiers reported there being hundreds of them. And they radioed back in saying, like, they're throwing rocks at us. Like, this is a problem. So they were told, use your bayonets if you have to, but do not fire on them. And then I guess while on the radio with the Marines, the captain reports that he could hear soldiers and some sort of strange creature screaming. They were like screaming in pain. And he received a frantic message that they were going hand to hand with the creatures. And shortly after that, the hillside erupted in gunfire and screams and screeches over the radio. And when the captain sent men to check it out, he found that the area was littered with injured soldiers and allegedly bloody bodies of the creatures. And no Marines had died, but many of them were evacuated with serious injuries. And it says the battle became known as the Battle of Dong Din. And that, I guess, they didn't take any of the bodies back because they were sold, they're soldiers. Right. This isn't their business. But they report having seen this, and apparently a lot of the soldiers from Vietnam have written books about it, and there's a lot of accounts from different people who don't know each other. And apparently there were so many accounts of soldiers either seeing them or hearing them or having rocks thrown at them that the northern Vietnamese went out like looking for them. And they couldn't find any of the creatures, but they did find a lot of strange tracks that they made castings of that they report as being wider than a human's could possibly be and a different shape. So there's not, irrefutable evidence, but according to eyewitness testimonials, there's quite a bit.
Yeah.
I will say, though, that story about the battle, the only thing that makes it kind of hard for me to believe is that is structured exactly how a short horror urban legend should be structured. Like, it hits all the points.
Right.
Like, dead on. Like, that seems a little too pat for it to be a true story to me.
We heard it on
but
the
I could
radio.
Just be cynical.
And then we went only to discover the bodies of all these creatures and all of our wounded fellows.
We don't know what happened, but this is what we heard over the radio.
And we conveniently forgot to grab any of the bodies that would account for all these, wounded people.
Well, so a lot of the people, when asked, why didn't you collect evidence or why didn't you shoot at them or, more often or anything like that, people say we were soldiers. That wasn't our job. If we had
control.
Well, if they'd gone to their higher ups and been like, hey, we're taking time to get like strange evidence of these creatures or something, they would have been told to get back to work. What are you doing? There's a war on,
No, except for the battle. By the time they went to recover the wounded Marines, they would have had the higher-ups with them who had a lot of paperwork that they had to do.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, potentially.
And they're not going to write on a report that they were attacked by unknown ape men without having a body or two to study.
I mean, well, considering the type of stuff that seemed to go down in that war, it is somewhat believable to me that they'd just be like, look, they're not going to accept that our platoon was wiped out by giant ape men, and we need to do something about it. Like, just VC came in.
Yeah, we're just going to say it was the Viet Cong and call it a day.
Like, record keeping was so bad anyway.
That's true. And I will say I doubt it was hundreds, because if you're being surrounded by hostile animals or people in the dark in the jungle, it really only takes about 6 for it to feel like at least 100, I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah. I think if it happened, it was probably not hundreds, but enough that it would be... I mean, any amount would be scary, right? If that really happened. Any amount of weird, humanoid primates throwing rocks at you would be freaking scary.
Maybe the Batutut king organized all the tribes into a final last fight for Hill 440 for some reason.
Are you writing a King Kong movie?
No, I think this one's already done, and it was
okay.
Planet of the Apes remake.
But,
it was something like that. Anyway.
Yeah.
I have heard, though, that
there's
no reason to assume that these ape man legends, and I'm thinking specifically more like Yetis and Sasquatches and Bigfoot, we can't say they're not true, just from a scientific standpoint. Like, there is a possibility, if they are canny enough, essentially, and know to retreat, that they wouldn't have been detected by us by now. I mean, we're discovering new species all the time, still.
Yeah. And I found these particularly interesting since people in that area do report seeing them regularly. And they're totally there. That's just, we don't bother proving it because we all know it's true, and it is what it is. And then to have outside forces from a completely different country come in and being like, what the crap? Like, presumably not knowing these stories. I just think that's a really interesting difference between it and, say, the Bigfoot.
And let's face it, when I lived in Nevada, I had even less evidence that brown bears existed than what they're reporting. And yet I'd get stuff in the mail about how to make sure your trash is bear proof. And I never doubted that bears were around and could be a menace.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even seen one myself in the flesh in that area.
That's a really good point. I had not thought of.
Well, and it's just such a... it's obviously a very rugged area, judging from the pictures that we've seen of it. Mm-hmm. And it's not an area where there's a lot of technological penetration, or at least there wasn't at that time. There probably is way more now.
But how much of it goes under the canopy?
Well, that's a question. I mean, certain things would, but probably the majority of it wouldn't. IR and stuff wouldn't necessarily. It's a pretty dense jungle, so you're talking like multiple layers of canopy, and but I mean,
Google Earth is certainly not going to prove or disprove
but
entire jungle civilizations, so to speak.
Right. Mm-hmm. As people get in there, though, people with cameras, people with portable recording devices of all kinds, it's going to be, if there are cryptids in situations like that, it's going to be increasingly harder for them to stay out of sight.
That's true.
That's true, but it's a big nature preserve in a big area, and it's not like you're going to have a line of people with cameras. Like, any creature, I think, that lives there and is savvy could avoid the odd hiker.
In fact, humans almost always stay on trails, and there is usually cubic square miles of terrain that nobody ever sees.
Right.
I had this experience when I was younger. We were flying out to Colorado, and I was looking out the window because I love looking out the window on airplanes. And we were over the Rockies, and there was a lake down there that was near the top of a mountain that was this perfect, clear green blue. It was obviously a hot spring. Mm-hmm. And the water was so clear that I could actually see the rocks on the bottom of the lake from an airplane. And I'll bet you that no one has ever been there, because the only possible way to get there would be helicopter, and in the middle of the Rockies, weather is a big factor. Like, that's actually a lot harder than you'd think.
Right.
And I told my dad the other day, I said, it's a romantic notion, yes, but considering that flight paths vary and weather varies and people looking out the windows varies, I may be the only human being to have ever laid eyes on that lake.
Yeah.
No longer true if you count satellite images.
Right.
You might be able to find it in satellite images.
I might. I've kind of poked around a little bit and haven't yet. Or I think I found multiple possibilities.
Yeah.
Well, and when you think
Interesting hobby.
Just
look at that kind of stuff.
Well, and if you think about times in history where we have been, like, people have been looking for something specific in forests and never found it. Like, think of a good example would be D.B. Cooper. We know he was real. We know he parachuted into a forest. They never found him.
There was a guy who admitted to being D.B. Cooper not too long ago, I think.
Yeah, on his deathbed, I think. But point being...
But they still never found the parachute or anything.
No.
It's not like nylon disintegrates.
And they knew the area to look in.
They found, like, money.
Well, they found some traces, but they never found him, is my point. So if you had a creature that's savvy enough and a forest that's big enough, then you could be looking for it specifically and never find it. Yeah.
It was a line from a book. This isn't like looking for a needle in a haystack. It's like looking for a particular piece of hay in a haystack.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a semi-wild creature, because we don't know, sometimes they're reported to have the power of speech, sometimes not, that's their native environment, they are going to blend into the forest perfectly from a human perspective.
Yeah.
They know it a lot better than we do. And we were out driving around here just the other day, and I'm like, wow, you could have some really insane compounds and things back in these hills and mountains, and nobody would ever know. This forest is so dense, and there are so many places that we don't go that you could have almost anything back there, and that's within an hour of Seattle.
Well, before too long, it's not even going to require a person to search these areas. They can program drones to move in a line with cameras.
I'm totally picturing like an all-terrain Roomba.
They would be above the ground. I mean,
see, I was imagining a terrifying spherical drone army of laser death, basically.
I mean, potentially, drones are serious business, but I don't know. Like, there's all kinds of approaches that we could use if we got really, really serious about finding stuff like this. Not that we ever will, but you know.
I kind of hope we don't.
Yeah.
There should stay some mysteries.
I think so. And just imagine if, like, someone was dead set on, we're going to find these things, and they did, and they proved that they're real, that forest would be torn apart.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say,
looking for them, they'd be put.
We've seen that movie way too many times, and it never ends well.
No.
I don't know. I don't know if it'd be torn apart. Like, there's a lot of low-impact ways to search.
No, I mean, if they searched and found the creatures, and then you think that people would be
other people would go
them and study them and put them in zoos or private zoos.
Know.
There's no way. If you prove Bigfoot was real tomorrow, there is no way you wouldn't have people out there looking to get them.
Like bag a Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. Yeah. There's always going to be those people.
Look at how many people have tigers in their backyard.
Think how many people go, well, it's not illegal to hunt Bigfoot yet. I might as well go now.
It's not illegal to keep a Bigfoot in a pen in your backyard with my tiger and my, whatever. Like,
yeah.
People do it. And I'm sure if you proved something like this was real,
I don't know.
People would be all over it for not necessarily conservation reasons.
I'd like to think it's just too close to human. I don't know, though. I don't think.
People keep chimps as pets and put them in diapers.
Oh, that's true. And then they usually end up paying for that, or frequently. Not usually, probably.
Sometimes.
And think about all the horrible things that have been said from a racist standpoint over time about who is and is not human.
Yeah. It might be better to just let the people who live in the jungle believe that they're real.
And also, I mean, let's presume here that the best parts of humanity win in this scenario once we prove Bigfoot is real. And then you have xenolinguists, essentially, and people who want to help them and get to know their culture and learn about them. And we also know how that story plays out. And it's not so great for the people being helped. It's great if assimilation is the goal, but that's usually where it ends up.
Yeah.
I'd like to think, they'd be really scientific about it, and, it would be institutions of higher learning and that kind of thing that would be looking into it, and so they'd minimize their footprint and do things in a way that was more observational and less, let's break everything.
That's true, because
well, hopefully,
when it comes to nature documentary stuff, like the attitudes behind it, we have shifted a lot in the last 50 years.
Oh yeah.
And it is possible that it would be basically cordoned off so that random people couldn't go.
I know they do that with some native tribes of humans.
The Sentinel, the Sentinel-y or Sentinel.
Yeah, there's a few of them where they just kind of are like, nobody can go on that island, and if you do, we're not saving you. And if they kill you because you're not supposed to be there, and it's protected. And
there was
because they had so many issues with cultural pollution back in like the 60s and 70s. I think is when they discovered a lot of isolated tribes, and like within weeks they were all wearing t-shirts and listening to boomboxes.
Apparently this tribe just kills people that happen to land there.
The Senegalese?
The Sentinelese.
They killed a missionary a while back. I think you might have heard of it.
They just, no outsiders permitted.
Yeah, they're on an island or something, and it's illegal to go there. And
as a result, we don't know much about the culture, I don't think.
Nothing, because they can't contact him. And one guy, like missionary guy, went there to try and do the thing, and they killed him, like on the beach. And his guides were like, nope, and left. And then his family were like, you need to go get his body. And the authorities were like, nope.
Nope.
He knew what this was. Like, they're protected. You're not supposed to go on that island. We're not going there. That's not how this works.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I would hope if, like, the Batutut or Bigfoot or something like that were discovered to be that kind of situation, but
I mean, if Bigfoot started killing people, it could go either way.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm kind of thinking napalm again.
Oh, jeez. No.
Because an isolated island somewhere out in the middle of nowhere is very different than a forest within a couple hours of Seattle.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the area would definitely, an already nature reserve in Vietnam is a lot different to cordon off and protect than Yosemite.
Right, exactly. Or apparently Fresno.
Yeah.
Apparently.
If we ever prove that the traveling pants are real.
Just that one guy's front yard
they
is
are
just
real. I believe in the traveling pants. They will come back.
The night
Their
crawlers.
Message. Oh yeah, the night crawlers.
I still think night walkers is
night
better.
Strutters, really.
They were like sassy walking, like bell bottom, like.
Or they were drunk.
Yes,
they're always
kind of look like
flowy.
Like she moves like a jellyfish.
Yeah.
Maybe that song was about them.
It's all coming together.
It is. C-O-N-spiracy.
Calm.
there was a guy that I went to high school with that he wore parachute pants that were like down under his butt, and he said everything was a conspiracy. That's a conspiracy, man. C-O-N-spiracy.
Wow.
He was a unique individual.
It sounds like it.
Sounds like he was poised to go far.
I'm just not sure what direction.
Yeah. But I mean, those parachute pants have a lot of elastic in them, so if they ever caught on anything, he would go far.
He would go very far.
That was a dad joke.
Yeah.
Those crazy kids in their parachute pants.
That's right.
Yeah,
terrible.
So I
saw that. Sorry, I was going to say, I did not see that again the other day, but I did see the whole plaid boxers with the shorts pulled down to as low on your hips as they would possibly stay up. And I'm like, I really thought that had finally faded out. But this dude was like, this guy was like 17.
Oh,
Weird. Yeah.
You guys may not be old enough to appreciate this, but I also saw in Walmart the other day this girl who was late teens, early 20s in tight leggings and a tie-dyed shirt that was like 4 times too big and cut off just above the belly button or just around there. And I'm like, I remember that fashion. That was like 8th grade for me.
It's all coming back around.
And it was like, I mean, it was dead on the same as people used to wear.
Is that the same era as leg warmers? I'm trying to picture it. Like
a bit after.
Yeah.
It was like 87, 88. It was the same era as Hair Bears, if they were around where you were.
No. They were not.
Okay, Hair Bears it was when you hairsprayed your bangs to go straight up and then like cascade the side like a waterfall, but it was like flat from the side.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And like the point was to get it as tall as you and out as you could.
Oh.
Wow. So
White Snake videos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hair out.
And also why no girls would be on the swimming team in that era because their hair would melt and it would literally take them like 3 hours to get it back up.
Yeah, really.
So swim class was drama.
Like, no.
Wow. And we think the Yeti might be weird.
Right. I mean, in a world where Hair Bears exist, anything is possible.
Right.
Also, Hair Bear, I feel like, is a really good name for a hairy cryptid.
That's true. It could be the umbrella term for rock apes and Sasquatch and Yeti. And
when you're in the dark
and
you come across a rock ape that looks like a bush and you shoot at it and you run.
I guess Hair Bear would be better than Hair Bush, but...
Yeah.
That's okay. I was a little not paying attention for a second, and I thought Nick was saying when you're in a bar and you run across... And I was like, when you run across a bear who looks like a rock ape?
I'm sure
some
there
of
are
them
plenty
come
of
close.
bears and instant PTSD, I think.
Yeah.
Flashbacks.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. But
well,
there
are into a battle with them. My God.
Right. There are several books by soldiers. I'll link them in the description in case anybody's interested. But there's several, like whole books about it. Different stories about their time in the war that include these stories and things like that, like firsthand accounts. So I'll put a link in the description so everyone can find that if you're interested.
Awesome.
And yeah, I really like this picture.
This rock ape's definitely been hitting the gem.
Hitting the gem.
Yeah, look at those.
Yeah, I noticed that your description did not include the chest as being bare.
It didn't. This is an artist.
The knees aren't actually
an artist rendering. How do you know how muscular it is if you can't see its chest, right? So.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I mean, it would be thick, right? I mean, you could assume that if it's crawling around the jungle at high rates of speed, it's not going to be kind of a flabby.
It's not crawling, it's walking bipedally.
Crawling, walking. It's all the same.
That's true. So it could have very muscular legs and like T-Rex arms.
I mean, it could be like swinging from tree to tree. We don't know.
Hairy nightcrawler.
We haven't seen it.
They can swing from tree to tree, according to the accounts of the people in that area.
Oh, okay. There you go. So they probably would be muscular.
Yeah.
On top as well.
And like shaking trees to get insects.
Just being 6 feet tall, there are some rules for how you can achieve that kind of height, and they do involve having more mass.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah. So you're saying that Slender Man is not anatomically likely?
I'm not saying that because I don't know over much about that field or that study, but
Slender Man's definitely not real. It's
you would think it
creepypasta that was invented online.
Difficult to achieve, something like the flesh would have to be very strong, I guess. Right?
Or they had to have grown up on a different planet.
Well, if that were the case, then it would have to be a planet with much higher gravity because it wouldn't work the other way. If it were higher gravity, they would be squashed down and they wouldn't look the same. They wouldn't have developed to be super high. But if they came down to Earth, they would not be able to stand if they developed in lower gravity. Right? So it's
except maybe magic.
Well, yeah, that's
science.
The technologic advances that prevent them from being acted on by the local gravity.
People can stand even in higher gravity, depending on how much higher the gravity.
Yeah, but the Slender Man is like chasing people and menacing people and
not
looking
real.
all scary.
He's not a cryptid.
No, I don't think he is a cryptid.
He's not a cryptid.
He's a creepypasta.
No, this is a theoretical discussion, Claire. We all agree that the Slender Man is not a physical reality.
Like having thought through it, I don't think the Slender Man has a plausible existence just physically.
I've seen some really skinny
without some
people.
kind of technology aiding
That's
or
true.
magical aiding his ability to exist in the environment.
Clearly,
I think the knocked face was more of a hindrance than him being tall and skinny. But like, how does he
and
eat?
also, like, yes, there are rules of mass about getting to 6 foot, but Clara has a point. There are plenty of humans who are 6 feet or taller who do not have this dude's musculature.
Well, not this. Yeah, I mean,
he could indeed kind of have T-Rex arms.
He definitely
noodle
has
arms.
Been, doing his reps and getting that protein and
doing
all that stuff too. So
this is an artist rendering. They're said to be stout and muscular. Like, think some of the bigger apes, like gorillas, big, muscly.
But Slender Man.
Why are we talking about Slender Man? He's not a cryptid. He has nothing to do with the Batutut rock ape thing. No.
Magical.
What? Some of the other pictures I found were not like this. They were more little skinnier primate looking. This is just artist rendering that has soldiers in it, okay? Can we get the fuck over it?
Yes! We were just having fun critiquing the picture.
Jesus!
Do you even lift, bro? He says to this guy. You get enough to eat, bro? Sorry.
I mean, I don't think the rock apes in Vietnam would speak English, but...
No, probably not.
Maybe
and I think if they did, the American soldiers probably would have mentioned it.
Probably.
I mean, I would think.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I wish this gave a sense of the amount of jungle that covers this peninsula, but it's like everywhere. It's this whole thing, I think, except like this is a delta, but I think there's still jungle. I think a
lot of it's jungle. This is an elevation map.
Yeah.
Up here, go to like this area is where the nature reserve thing is, kind of up in there. So it's like hills and it dips down a little bit.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, there's also Borneo, which is an island to the southeast, and they're reported to be much more aggressive in Borneo. But
well, if it's an island, and it has been for a long while, they'd probably be slightly different evolutionary branches.
Mm-hmm. Which I think accounts for the different sizes and because the different sizes are different areas and
right. I mean, there are pygmy humans.
Yeah, well, and not even that extreme. Like, I know if you go just to different parts of, say, Mexico, a lot of people will say, like, oh, if you're from southern Mexico, you're shorter. Just for some reason, that's how that works. But, yeah, so I just thought this was a really interesting cryptid because it has two very different, like, you have the native perspective, the native stories, and then this more modern, like, forest, totally different part of the world encroaching on this area, having these experiences. So I thought there was a very interesting kind of duality, dichotomy there to the reports.
Yeah.
It's possible that...
And this one interests me because it does have so many more sightings even than the other man-ape cryptids. And I don't know if any of the others have ever been reported to speak in an unknown language like this has.
Right. Yeah. I'll link it. There's a whole website by this like anthropologist that has a lot of information about an anthropologist who studied them and asked a bunch of questions. And yeah, people report them coming up and just chilling next to a campfire and then leaving, or coming up and kind of talking but in a language they can't understand and then leaving. And
that'd be weird.
They call them the jungle people.
They're coming up. Hey, you got any food? Hey, you got any soap?
Yeah, it's probably not soap.
Can I borrow a cup of sugar?
Yeah.
You heard about Slender Man?
Hey, watch out for Slender Man.
Oh my god! So
he's around here somewhere, and he's physically impossible.
Oh my god!
I need to put that line in a book. He's around here somewhere, and he's physically impossible.
I like it. It's a good writing prompt, I think.
Okay, thank you. I will.
I'll put it in a book too.
Okay. That's fine. The Traveling Shovel of Death shows up in a whole lot of books during Nano. So things are not limited to one book.
No, definitely not.
Not the Traveling Pants.
Yeah, I was thinking about the Traveling Pants. The Traveling Pants should show up in books.
The Walking Pants, just randomly. That'd be a good writing prompt,
gazed at the shoreline and saw, barely out of the corner of his eye, movement. He turned his gaze, and there was pants.
Just pants. My God.
And the pants were fluttering in the breeze as they marched their way down the shore with a weird strutting.
Everything in America is funnier with the British definition of pants.
What is the British definition of pants?
Underwear.
Oh, yeah.
Things you wear on the outside are trousers.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So it's just kind of hilarious sometimes to hear Americans talking and just imagine that it's all the British meaning.
Yeah.
Though the worst one I saw was I was reading a fanfic and two people kissed and it was described their pants mingled in their mouth. And I was like,
what?
And I'm thinking underwear. I'm like, are they thongs? Like, how do they fit? But the person meant that they were both panting.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's a horrible.
That's a weird
what? That's
thing
no.
Yeah, that was a phrase went horribly awry.
Also, like, just physically, if you're trying to kiss someone, but you're still panting, then you're just kind of breathing heavily right into each other's mouths.
Yeah,
and that's not kissing at all. That's...
That is some action movie sex scenes, though.
That's true. They are really fond of, like, we're right next to each other and we're just like...
Just two open mouths, just breathing hard at each other.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Which, when you know how many times actors specifically have challenges to eat the grossest things they can on the days that they have kissing scenes.
Oh, seriously. That'd be the time to do it. This weird, heavy breathing kissing.
Like, sauerkraut and onion and garlic and...
No. No. These things should not be done.
Aren't you glad you're not an actor with
mean.
kissing scenes?
I guess so.
Given that.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Ew.
Well, so anyway. I think that's about it for cryptids on this issue. One that's probably not real, one that probably is.
I'm horrified.
And Nick's horrified about gross kissy breath.
I think we need to name this episode Cryptids and More. As we have wandered fairly far afield at times.
Far a jungle.
Oh, wow.
That too.
Yeah.
You're off the podcast, too.
Okay, I used to live with someone who kept a squirt bottle for the cats, and if I said a pun that was too bad, he'd squirt me in the ear.
That's uncomfortable. Wow.
Teach you a lesson.
Yeah, but most of the time I did have to admit I deserved it.
Oh, gotcha.
You're like, fair enough.
I understand.
Yeah, exactly. Totally worth it to say that pun.
Sometimes it's worth it, yeah. But, yeah, Batutut. Batutut? I really want to do one on a local cryptid that I found, but I didn't find too much, so I wasn't really prepared to do it for this, and the Fresno pants seem to be a good option, considering there's very little information out on them at all. But it's
that does make your research shorter.
It does, but that one was called the Bobo, and it's apparently some kind of ichthyosaur-looking thing.
We'll definitely have to do another cryptid issue with different
at least
kinds.
One.
Yeah, and so we can. Maybe we should just do like an all-water cryptids. That would be cool.
That could be fun.
Okay, so where do you draw the line between cryptid and folktale?
I think.
Like, would a selkie count as a water cryptid?
I was just talking to someone about those yesterday, and they were
funny.
And they were calling them cryptids.
Oh, okay.
I think as long as it's a creature that people believe is real without any proof, it could be technically a cryptid. I mean,
that's true. I mean, I would argue that at the time that Kelpies were a major part of folklore, they were a cryptid in that culture.
Wait, Selkies or Kelpies?
Either or, aren't they two different?
They're two different ones. Yeah.
But they're both animal, people, spirit things.
I don't think kelpies are.
Kelpies are
They're water.
Are they just a water horse?
Yeah.
Yeah. They cryptid. I don't know.
They're not people. Though.
No.
Whereas selkies are part of the time.
And that's where it gets interesting. Like when it's, I'm not sure. I mean, it would probably fall under a lot of definitions of cryptid, but I'm not sure it would fall under my personal one when people are involved, like normal people that turn into animals.
So like a werewolf wouldn't be a cryptid.
Yeah, it's kind of the same realm.
No, I would agree with that. A human or clearly human-like species, like
right.
Because we don't know if selkies, in some myths, were considered a separate species that just kind of interbred with humans, but they're still humans, essentially.
Well, what about like fairies or gnomes or that kind of thing? They're human-ish. Would those be cryptids or no?
Well, it depends. If you think of cryptids as animals, then anything that talks and wears clothes would probably not count as a cryptid.
Right.
So in that case, rock apes are kind of possibly on the border, but they're not like gnomes or elves or fairies or kobolds or any of the other humanoid folklores. They are definitely more in the Bigfoot camp.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think for me personally, based on just, my own thoughts about it, I would, if someone were to bring something to me and say, hey, what about this? I would think it was a cryptid if there was some sort of proof or evidence for it being a real natural animal. And like if somebody was like, hey, I totally have seen fairies, I wouldn't be like, dude, cryptid. I'd be like,
that's true.
Spirit, thing.
Like, magical race, any number of possibilities, but it's not a natural animal.
Well, that does it for part 2 of issue 3 of the Odd Times, Rock Apes, and the Fresno Nightcrawler. If you liked what you heard, or if you're interested in hearing more, please feel free to like and subscribe and hit the little bell indicating you'd like a message when we upload new content so you can see new things as they come up, and we will be going through a list of interesting topics and random opinions.